Dear friends, I'm operator Starsky, and it's day 1139 of Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. Today we'll talk about the atrocious Russian attack on Kryvyi Rih. Also, our channel survived a Russian ballistic strike, and the Russian advance is slowing down. My dear friends, this is the Frontline focus. Let's roll. Atrocious Russian attack on the children playground in Kryvyi Rih took lives of 18 Ukrainian civilians, including 9 kids aged from 3 to 17. The Russian terrorists cynically stated in their official Russian media that these children were foreign troops, and according to the UN observers, it was the most massive case of the Ukrainian minors being murdered by Russians since 2022. The footage of the terrorist Russian attack against the Ukrainian children is too gruesome to show on YouTube. However, it's broadly available on other resources and is truly shocking. 6 children lost their lives at the spot, and later that day 3 more perished in the hospital. At this point, we know about 75 people that were injured. 37 of them are still in the hospital, 19 in critical condition, including 4 kids. The US ambassador to Ukraine, Bridget Brink, published a rather surprising statement attempting to condemn the crime instead of Russian criminals who factually committed the crime, which proved to many that the White House has absolutely no understanding on what is happening in Ukraine. Next day, though, during a Russian strike on Kyiv, the ambassador finally managed to mention that the missiles were indeed coming from Russia, because obviously she's also been taking cover in a bomb shelter. I think I should explain to those who have never experienced an airstrike. It does feel complicated to risk your life with Russian missiles landing around you, and at the same time publicly pretend that Russians are not the enemy or saying banal things about the war that should stop. The fact is, the war won't stop just because you tell the war to stop in your Twitter. The war stops when the invaders are told to stop. That is unfortunately the only possible way to restore the just and lasting peace, to stop the aggressor, like the Allies did in Europe in 1945 or like the NATO forces did in Iraq in 1991. Stopping the aggressor results in restoring peace, and it's an obvious fact. In addition to this, on Sunday, a Russian ballistic missile hit the office of our channel in Kyiv, and it was already a second strike committed against the UATV by the Russian terrorists this year. All our team considers this a solid recognition that we are doing the right thing, because, you know, the tyrants are afraid of free speech, especially the tyrants like Putin. Therefore, it wasn't surprising for us at all. And we will keep exposing Russian crimes and delivering the latest updates on the Russian aggression against the civilized world. Switching to the Ukrainian front lines, the Institute for the Study of War reported that the Russian advances are slowing down despite all their efforts. According to the analysis, these are the gains of the Russian invaders. We can see that in November 2024, the Russian terrorists captured 627 square kilometers of Ukraine's territory, which is roughly half of what the Russian invaders would capture on a daily basis in March 2022. In December last year, the Russians only managed to capture 569 square kilometers, 427 in January 2025, 354 in February, and only 203 square kilometers in March. Just so you could understand, 203 square kilometers is a square of a territory about 14 kilometers across, or less than 9 miles. All this considering that the current front line in Ukraine is as large as 1,500 kilometers, and Russia still hasn't managed to capture even a single major city in Ukraine in more than 3 years of war. And just to break down the Russian narratives that Ukraine is dramatically losing massive territories on a daily basis. In 2022, Russia occupied approximately 27% of Ukraine's territory. Already next year, this number decreased to 19% and hasn't changed much until this day. On 4th of April, the good Ukrainian drones visited several Russian military factories and effectively stopped their production. One of those factories is known as Pромsynthез in Samara Oblast. It was an enterprise producing explosives. And another one in Moravia Oblast is known as Fiber Optic Systems. The investigation confirmed that this factory produced fiber optic cables for the Russian drones. The witnesses reported multiple explosions that took place in those areas. Approximately 20 of them were heard at the Pромsynthез factory. Apparently, Russian air defense wasn't really effective against the good Ukrainian drones, which, as we can see, is currently the only working guarantee against the Russian war. And speaking of the Russian air defense, the Ukrainian soldiers shared a footage showcasing the process of destroying 3 Russian Buk air defense systems in a single day by a single team. All 3 systems were hit by the FPV drones, which is probably a historic achievement as of this moment. We know that this will cause a significant gap in the Russian air defense and will introduce more opportunities for Ukrainian pilots. According to the US president, the Trump administration keeps communicating with the Russian terrorists. When asked about the progress in terms of negotiations with Russians, Donald Trump traditionally avoided answering this question directly, and he replied that he keeps negotiating with Russians because he wants the bomb strikes to stop, and he feels concerned with the deaths of thousands of young people in a war that wasn't supposed to start, and of course would never start if he was a president. I believe that we probably won't hear anything new coming from Donald Trump besides the phrases he's learned from his PR team in 2024, and keeps using them over and over and over again in every interview when asked simple questions like who will participate in the next negotiations and what is the current progress. In the meantime, the Russian representative Kirill Dmitriev said that he observed first respectful steps from the US towards the Russian terrorists, and there is a fragile hope that the dialogue can be re-established. He also stated that the next contacts between the US and the Russian terrorists can be expected this week. With that, my dear friends, I wish you all a beautiful day. Please subscribe to stay informed about the most important updates and share this content to help Ukraine be heard. I'll see you in the comments. I'm operator Starsky. As always, be safe.